Hello, everybody. It is Keitho here, and on today's episode, we've got Ellen Keane. Ellen, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I'm so nervous as well. I don't know what you're going to do.
Don't be nervous. There's nothing to be nervous of. Look, for anybody who doesn't know, Ellen is an amazing Paralympian, an athlete, and a swimmer. And let's start right there, because I did notice on one of your tweets recently that you're very proud to be a Paralympian rather than an Olympian. And I think some people, myself included, we might have been inclined perhaps to call you an Olympian. So tell us what your concept is behind the fact that you prefer to be called a Paralympian.
So the Paralympics happens straight after the Olympics every 4 years. It's exactly the same. The para in Paralympics stands for parallel. So it's all about elite athletes who have a disability competing at the highest level. And it's really important for me to be called a Paralympian, because when you call me a Paralympian, you acknowledge I have a disability. And sometimes I feel like people call me an Olympian because they're too afraid to acknowledge that I have a disability. But if I don't kind of own that I have a disability and embrace the fact that I'm different, it kind of isn't really good for people coming up or kids who might have a little bit of an insecurity. So that's what the Paralympic movement's all about. It's about showing what happens when you give people with a disability an opportunity. So I'm really proud to be called a Paralympian.
Well, that's fantastic for people to know that. And also, I suppose you see yourself as a role model for kids that are coming up in para, how do you say it? Para-athletes, para-athleticism? Is that an actual word?
Yeah, para-athletes, I think. So you're not really a Paralympian until you go to the Paralympics, the same way you're not an Olympian until you go to the Olympics. So the term would be para-athlete or para-swimming if you're a swimmer.
Yeah.
But it's so important for me to be a role model, because I didn't have anyone to look up to really when I was growing up.
Right.
So I didn't know anyone with a similar disability to me. And because of sport, that's kind of where I found people like me. And I would have been so insecure about my arm growing up, and it was only through sport that I learned to love my body. And there's still not enough of that in the media or representation in general. So I try to throw my arm and my body out there as much as I can.
Well, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And look, I've been a fan of yours for a couple of years now. I've watched some of your amazing swims. Tell me this, what we all want to know: the Olympics this year and the Paralympics, of course. What's going on? Is it all happening? Is it not happening? Are you training? Give us an insight.
Yeah, so thankfully I'm still able to train full time at the moment. Sport Ireland have kind of set up a bubble system so that athletes are still able to train as long as the games are still going ahead. And yeah, it's all systems go. All the emails are about what's going to happen when we get to Tokyo. It's going to be how we're going to make sure we're all safe. The only concern that I really have now is that the Olympics will go ahead. The Olympians will get ahead of themselves, and a breakout might happen, and then the Paralympics will be cancelled. So that's my one concern. So if there's any Olympians watching this, please behave yourself.
Yeah, well, I think it's important when you say behave yourselves, because there are some athletes over the past year, as we know, that have done things that they probably shouldn't have done, which have caused, various lockdowns. Tell me this, when it comes to not just coronavirus, but just the Olympics, the Paralympics, do you get nervous? Do you get nervous when you go out there, or are you kind of just used to it at this stage?
I think kind of, all those countdowns that go on. So a few weeks ago, it was 6 months to go. And then I think the next one will be 100 days to go. It's those countdowns that I'm kind of it's getting closer. But once I'm out there, I love embracing it. I love the moment. And it's so weird. Once you're out there, you're in this actual bubble where the whole outside world doesn't really exist. And you're just living and training and competing with fellow athletes. And it's a really, really strange environment to be in, but it's one of the best environments I've ever been in. So I can't wait for it to happen again.
And tell me this. So I worked with a swimmer years ago, Melanie Knocker, with our mindset for the Olympics. And I also remember Sonia O'Sullivan. And the reason I'm talking about the two of them is I remember both of them suffered from food poisoning when they were at the Olympics. I'm just wondering, is that ever a concern of yours? When you go to a foreign country, do you bring your own food? Do you eat the food that's there? What happens there?
Yeah, I would tend to bring snacks and stuff in terms of what I know I eat straight after racing, or what I know I eat straight after training. But other than that, I kind of just stick with simple things. I don't try and be adventurous, and I leave the adventure for after competing.
So are you strict on your diet at the moment then? Like, I've absolutely no idea with regards to swimming. Like, is diet a huge part of your training, or is it just a small part?
It would be a huge part in terms of calories, trying to get the calories in. I think a lot of athletes struggle to actually get the amount of calories in that they need.
Yeah.
So it's just constantly about fueling. It's more about the timing of your meals as well. So making sure you're fueled before you go training and then straight afterwards. And then like if you're hungry, eat. Like that's the main thing. Your body's trying to tell you something.
So, I know that you are studying culinary entrepreneurship. Tell me, what is that for starters?
So actually, I had intended on completing it after Tokyo, but because Tokyo got postponed, I decided to finish my thesis. So I'm actually finished now. But it's all about food and business. It took me about 5 years to learn how to spell entrepreneurship, but I originally wanted to do it because I was being a real stubborn disabled person, and I was like, I don't want to do a desk job. I want to do something practical. So I wanted to work in the kitchen. And then as soon as I got into the kitchen, I was like, this is a 24/7 job. I'm already doing a 24/7 job. I don't want to be a chef.
Yeah.
But I learned so much. Like I learned all about how to cook, which is really important. And then I learned a lot of things about nutrition that I could put into my sport, which is really important too. So no, it's really, 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 really fun.
Is that something that you'll pursue down the line, perhaps owning a restaurant, or is it just something that...
You never know. I might join the bandwagon of bringing out a cookbook.
Oh, you heard it here first. Ellen Keane cookbook for Paralympians, maybe.
The one-handed meals.
The one-handed meals, yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'll buy the book. I'll be the first in because I'm all about diet and exercise and mindset. So tell me this. How do you prepare your mind in the run-up to the Paralympics?
It's really strange at the moment because usually you do so much competing throughout the year so that you're you mentally know what it's going to be like when you're racing, and you're mentally preparing and you're playing it over and over again in your mind. And then you do so many practice competitions so that you know where to tweak it when you get to the main one. But we're not doing that at the moment because we're not allowed to travel. We're not allowed to go and compete anywhere. We've got a few kind of time trials, but they're not the same. So at the moment, it's literally all in my head. But I think it's kind of good because at the same time, do you know when you haven't done something in ages and you just can't wait to go out and do it?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's going to be like when it comes to Tokyo. Because when Tokyo comes around, it's going to be nearly 2 years exactly since I've competed internationally, which is not a great preparation. But yeah, quite a while. But, you know, I just can't wait to get going.
So when you say it's all in your head, you know, with the type of work that I do, I'm a big fan of creative visualization, also self-hypnosis. Do you visualize yourself, you know, swimming? And if you do you visualize perhaps some obstacles that you might meet when you're swimming, or do you just visualize the end game, like winning a gold medal?
I don't really visualize the end game more so. I kind of visualize how it would feel. So I kind of done this since I was a kid. No one ever really taught me how to do it. And I kind of think I learned from watching Michael Phelps videos of him racing. But I'd visualize what it would feel like behind the blocks, on the blocks, diving in, and then what each stroke would feel like. And I'd visualize that for the whole race. And then I might visualize what the commentator might be saying. So I'm visualizing me in the water and what it will feel like. And then I'm kind of outside looking in.
I think that's fantastic to know because, well, two things. First of all, I think people are watching this, like our viewers right now, they need to understand that creative visualization is so key, probably more so now for you than ever because, not having been able to compete for the last couple of years. So being able to just get inside your own head. And I suppose for me, the most famous example is actually Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, he stated that in, I think it was 3 years in the run up to the Olympics, he visualized every single day. And then when he was at the Olympics, he also visualized every single morning. And then, of course, he won 28 gold medals. For anybody looking for the science on this, there's also a famous basketball study. I don't know if you're familiar with the Chicago basketball study. Yeah, it's really fascinating. So very quickly, they took 3 basketball groups of equal level. And the basketball group 1, they were told for a month, sit it out, you're not training, just relax, chill, no training. Basketball group 2, they were told to sit it out, but to visualize scoring 3 points every single day during the time that they were supposed to have been training. And then basketball group number 3, they just continued training as normal. So the results were fascinating. After the end of the month, basketball group 1, who just sat it out and did nothing really happened. In other words, their ability didn't dip, but it didn't increase. So they just kind of stayed at the same level. Basketball group 2, the group that visualized themselves scoring those 3 points, they increased their ability, believe it or not, by 23%. And that was a group that did not physically perform the action of the 3 points. They just visualized it. And then group number 3, who went about business as usual, who actually just practiced every single day, that group increased by 24%. So the concept is there was only a 1% difference between the group that visualized the action and the group that actually took the action. So I think people need to understand that athletes such as yourself, Michael Phelps, I'm not an athlete, but as a performer, I visualize every single day. So it's important for people just to take inspiration from perhaps that you get inside your own head and that's part of your process.
It's also kind of like, especially the day before a race, I'll make sure that I sit down and I know exactly what time I'm racing at and I write it all down. So I visualize when I'm supposed to be racing, when I'm supposed to be in the call room, and I work my way back from there. And it's not just that I visualize it and I know it's going to happen. It also takes a big load of stress off me. So I'm not worrying the next day about what's actually going to go on.
And tell me, do you suffer from stress at all with all of the pressure?
Yeah, it's not so much stress. I would suffer more with anxiety in terms of because I was so good at negative self-talk growing up about my arm, I think I conditioned my mind and my body to be really good at believing all of those things. So especially since Rio, I've been working with a psychologist, I've been working with other people to try and not believe that voice anymore. But the closer it kind of gets to competition, I can kind of feel it creeping in a little bit. So trusting myself enough not to believe that is something that I'm working on, but it does still happen.
Well, and thank you for being so honest with that, because I think a lot of people, I think when they look at somebody like you sometimes, even now, because look, I've seen a lot of your press and obviously your Twitter feed, you're kind of come across sometimes like Superwoman. And I think it's important, but you know what I mean? And I think it's important that people realize that, you have your moments and that you're working with a sports psychologist and other people. And again, I always say to people, surround yourself by thought leaders in your field, whether that's a sports psychologist, a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, or just a friend. But the power of collaboration is so key, I think. And the concept that, other people can help you strengthen your mind. And I always think of it like this, that negative voice is there for everybody. I can't do this. I won't do this. I'm not good enough. That negative self-talk, as you put it. And we must learn to shrink it down. So we've got to shrink that down and then magnify the positive in every single moment in our lives. For me, again, and this is all about sharing this series that we have. For me, that was never more important than I was in a big car accident way back in 2007. And ultimately, my left leg was demolished in the accident. So people don't really know how bad it was. My knee was broken. My tibia and fibia were disintegrated all the way down. My metatarsals were broken to my toes. And then my left foot was dislocated and wrapped around my shin. But ultimately, the amount of negative self-talk that started to come in then, because I was in a full leg cast for months, but I was told I was going to have a limp for the rest of my life is what I'm trying to get to. And I kept believing that, and I kept having that negative self-doubt. But then ultimately I just put a switch in my brain and I magnified the positive that I was alive, because, in that kind of car accident, the statistics would tell you that you're going to die, But I magnified the positive and I shrunk down the negative. And then I went on what I call super activation mode. So super activation mode for me is literally focusing on nothing else except healing my leg in that moment. So with that being said, like with you, when you're training, do you find that sometimes there's a danger of overtraining?
Not so much, because we do monitoring. So we fill in a monitoring sheet every day and our coach gets that information. But I also trust my coaches, and it's also about communicating as well. So if you're having a rough day or a bad day, or maybe you haven't fueled properly enough, it's important to communicate that with your coach so that they don't overtrain you. Yeah,
got it. And are you superstitious at all?
Am I superstitious? It's not that I'm superstitious, but you know that like gut feeling.
Yeah.
I've learned to trust that a lot over the years. And the more I trust that, the more I believe in like the universe is trying to tell me something.
But I think that's probably that gut feeling comes from a level of confidence in your training also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you feel like you've trained enough and if your mind is in the right place, then I think it's a good thing to trust that gut feeling. And do you read? Do you read at all?
I have an awful habit of finding a book, finding loads of books, buying these books and being like, I'm going to read this book. This book's going to be a great book. And reading like the first 3 pages and then not reading it again.
Yeah, so like, I always ask that to people that I'm sharing this experience with. But I'm a big reader and a big bookworm, and for me, I do think it's important, not just for athletes, para athletes, just for people in general to feed their brain knowledge. So if you don't read books, where do you get your inspirations from? Do you look at other athletes, perhaps, or do you listen to podcasts, or is there anything that you do that perhaps some of our viewers might learn from?
Yeah, I love podcasts. I literally like I can't do anything if I'm not listening to something. So even like cleaning the apartment or going out for a walk, I'll always have a podcast in, and it's just a really good way of doing two things at the same time. So even driving the car, you could be learning something.
So, favorite podcast, what is it?
Okay, so my favorite podcast isn't a learning podcast though.
Okay.
It's Crime Junkies. It's all about serial killers.
Oh, I love this. So we just had Ed Solomon on, a friend of mine who's a screenwriter. So he wrote Bill and Ted, and he wrote Now You See Me, the movies. And just when you mentioned sounds terrible all of a sudden, but when you mentioned serial killers, Ed was actually a prime suspect in the Night Stalker.
No way.
Yeah, you know, the Night Stalker.
Oh, I watched that one.
Yeah. So Robert Ramirez, I think, was the name of the guy.
Yeah.
Right? So Ed, it turns out Ed was a friend of mine. He was actually a suspect in that, and it's a whole thing. So he explains it all in one of my episodes. But I'm a big fan of crime series as well, is what I'm trying to get to. So yeah, Robert Ramirez, The Night Stalker. It's up on Netflix. Amazing documentary. So yeah, I'm with you. I love podcasts and anything crime related. With that being said, I want you to try to help me solve a problem right now. Okay. So the Rubik's Cube, which came from
Going back to the Rubik's Cube.
a packet of M&Ms a few moments ago. So there are 43 quintillion variations to a Rubik's Cube. Now, what that basically means, Ellen, is if I was to turn the cube 1 turn per second like this, well, that's 60 turns per minute. That's 3,600 turns per hour. That's 86,400 turns per day. Look, what that really means is if I was to turn this cube 1 turn per second, since before time even began, I still would not have turned this thing 43 quintillion times. Now, the guy who invented this, Rubik, he actually didn't know he had invented a puzzle, and it took him a month to solve the puzzle. So here's my question to you. Do you think you could solve this now remotely?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do it anyway because you have the 2 hands.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think you could do it one-handed, Ellen. Look, you could do it like this, no problem. But
I'll try.
But here's my challenge to you, okay? I'm going to mix it, but you're going to help me mix it. So obviously you're not here, so I'll close my eyes. So I'll mix and you tell me when to stop mixing.
Okay. Keep going. Keep going. I think I'm just making it worse.
No, I want you to mix it up. You're not solving it. You're just mixing it.
Okay.
So tell me when to stop. Okay.
Yeah,
So now, are you happy that it's mixed?
Yes.
Okay. So here we go. So let me just study this for a second, because I've been studying these for 40 years, since I'm 4. I only learned how to solve one last year, which is quite sad, actually, if you think about it. But I know that this can actually be solved in 5 moves. Just by looking at it. Because actually, weirdly, even though there's 43 quintillion variations, in Rubik's Cube terminology, there's actually a thing called God's number. And God's number basically means that every cube can be solved in less than 20 moves. So this can be solved in 5. So I'm going to close my eyes, and you're going to try and solve it, okay? So do you want to start at the top, bottom, front, back, left, right, or middle?
Top.
Do you want to go clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Anti-clockwise.
How many moves?
2.
1, 2, done. Top, bottom, front, back, left, right, or middle?
Bottom.
Clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
How many?
3.
1, 2, 3. Now,
I don't know what I'm doing.
You said a moment ago you trust your gut instinct. So trust your gut instinct that you're going to get this right. Do you want to see it from a different angle, or do you want to keep it at this angle?
A different angle.
Okay, tell me where to stop.
Okay, stop.
There? Okay, top,
Yeah,
bottom, front, back, left, right, or middle?
Left.
Forwards or backwards?
Forwards.
How many moves?
Two.
One, two. Two moves
Yeah.
left. Top, bottom, front, back, left, right, or middle?
Right.
Forwards or backwards?
Forwards.
How many moves?
Three.
One, two, three. All right, final move. Top, bottom, front, back, left, right, or middle?
Oh God, this is many different. Top.
Clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Anti-clockwise.
How many moves?
Three.
One, two, three. 43 quintillion variations, and in just 5 moves.
I haven't done anything.
You see, life is not the way that you look at problems, Ellen. Life is the way that you perceive them. You see, if you look at from different angles, you can see different solutions. Ellen, you did something way more impossible, and I mean way more impossible than solve the cube. Because I don't know if you noticed, but back here, there's another cube. Now, did you even actually notice that cube up there?
I did when you were putting it back up.
Yeah, check this out. Look, you're not going to believe this. You actually matched my cube.
That's cool.
The 3 blue, the 3 red, the 2. But here's the crazy thing. You didn't just match it on one side, Ellen. You matched it on the second side. Ellen, you didn't just match it on the second side. Ellen, you matched it on a third side. You didn't just match it on a third side, Ellen. You matched it on a fourth side and a fifth side and a sixth side. That's 43 quintillion times 43 quintillion times. You're an absolute genius.
That's gas.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I literally was watching you do it and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I have no idea how you just did that, by the way. No idea at all. Alrighty, so I'm interested in the importance of kids learning swimming from a safety aspect. So I've got 2 kids, 12 and 9. They can kind of, like, I'm a very relaxed parent. So in regards, I encourage them to do kind of dangerous things, dangerous activities. Like, you know, I think now adults are frightened of kids even climbing trees and things like that. And they, you know, they do karate and they do rugby and all, and that's all a choice of theirs. But they know the only thing that they don't have a choice in is swimming lessons. So both of them go to swimming lessons. And I think it's just so important from a safety aspect because I'm also an angler. So my passion is fishing. And the amount of fishermen who die unnecessarily from just slipping off a rock and not being able to swim. Like, it's one thing having a life jacket, which we all should have if we're alone, you know, near the sea. But I know of fishermen who literally drowned because they couldn't swim. And I know of children who have drowned. How important do you think it is for kids to learn how to swim?
Well, that's why I learned how to swim, because my parents decided just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I'm not going to learn how to swim. Like, I could run into the pool on holiday and end up drowning because of it. So it was so important. And yeah, it's one of those life skills that you just have to have.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's absolutely that. It's a life skill rather than just something that, you know, perhaps could be perceived as a hobby. I think it's great, by the way, with the various lockdowns. A lot of people have embraced swimming. Do you swim in the sea, by the way?
Oh, during the second lockdown, maybe. I would swim in the sea if it was sunny, but just it's too cold at the moment. Like, I don't know how people are doing it. They're so brave.
So you're not into doing it all year round like some of these crazy people who, I mean, I'm kind of one of the crazies, by the way. I've been doing it for years. I suppose the downfall of the lockdown for me is I can't get near the sea. So I'll probably, as a result of this, I'm telling you, within the next 5 years, I'm going to move to the sea because I was brought up near Dunmore East, and fishing and swimming, it's in my blood. So I'm one of the crazy people who would be swimming all year round, but not as a result of the coronavirus, just because that's what I would do anyway. Tell me this.
I wish I was, because it's so refreshing. Like, you feel like a new person when you come out of the water.
Well, you should look into it. I mean, I don't know if you've looked into Wim Hof at all. Have you looked into Wim Hof, the Iceman?
No.
Oh.
A little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, so ice cold immersion coupled with the breath work. There's a lot of science to back up the fact that it helps and promotes healing within the body. So, just from an athletic standpoint, it's something you might want to have a quick look into and decide for yourself if the science actually really backs it up, because I'm all about the science of these things. Finally, before we wrap it up, do you set goals for yourself? Obviously, I'm going to guess the answer to that is yes for the Paralympics. But, like, do you have your mindset on gold for the Paralympics? And if so, do you write down your goals? What way do you go about goal setting?
For goal setting, I look more at my times. So specifically what time is my goal rather than the material outcome, because in swimming, you can't control other people. So it's more important to focus on what you can control. And for me, I have a specific time in my head that I want to go in Tokyo.
Got it. And then do you set other goals outside of swimming?
Yeah. So I have goals for when I'm in the gym. I have goals in terms of what I want to do professionally, and personally.
That's great because, again, I think people need to understand that, high performance people such as yourself, that they set those goals and those targets for themselves and then obviously take action daily towards those targets and those goals. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't take up a piece of paper and they don't write down their goals and their dreams. And we must do that. Now, with that being said, I'm going to try one final quick brain hack with you. We'll see, can we do this? I've got a piece of paper here. I'll use this in a moment. But for now, I want you just to look at me, take a deep breath in and out, and just close your eyes for a moment. Close your eyes. And I want you to, in your mind, focus on an athlete or a movie. Do that for me now, like a random athlete or movie. Okay, don't say it out loud now. And you've got one in mind though, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Focus on whether it's an athlete or a movie. Don't say anything, just think of it. So whatever the first letter of this is, just focus on the first letter for me, please. Just the first letter. Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, H, D, F, E, D, C, B, A, C, B, C, C, C. The first letter is a C. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, and open your eyes. Just look at me. Okay, this is an athlete. This is a female athlete and somebody that you admire. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. And just so everybody knows, you didn't tell me the name of the person in advance. There's no way I can know this. Look at me. Don't say anything. Just focus on the name. I'm writing something down. I think I'm getting this. Just tell me this. Pizza or pasta? Quickly. Pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
Okay. Favorite sport outside of swimming?
Mine or theirs?
No. Your favorite sport. What you like looking at outside of swimming?
Rugby.
Okay, and then finally, whiskey or water?
Water.
Okay, I think that gives me all the information I need. Okay, I'm going to write something down. I'm not sure about this. I'm genuinely not sure, so I'm kind of a bit nervous. Okay, name out loud. Who are you thinking of?
Kieran McGeehan. That's funny. How did you do that?
I was just inside your head.
I don't like that. I don't know if you hacked my brain or my phone.
Both. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Tell people, where can they follow you online on social media?
They can follow me on Instagram at Keane_Ellen, and it's the same on Twitter.
Oh my God, before we wrap up, do you not find Twitter really poisonous? Like, I'm on there too, but do you like Twitter or do you find it a bit crazy?
I only follow certain people and I kind of go there to find my news, and then I tweet really random stuff. So I try and stay away from the poison. Oh,
with that being said then, are you a bit of a wind-up merchant on Twitter? Or do you just take it for your news feed, or what do you do?
No, I take it for my news feed and then the funny trends that come up.
Got it. Okay, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And I can see into the future, gold, gold, gold all the way for you in the Paralympics. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith.